you're not just listening to a story, but stepping into a haunting black and white film. The main character is you, a small farmer who thought life was nothing more than plowing the fields and a thin bowl of porridge, until suddenly you're pulled into a script no one ever asked your opinion on. The opening act, Fate, rings the church bell in the middle of the night. At first, you think it's calling for early prayers, but no, it's more like a spoiler bell, announcing that the whole village is about to have some serious drama. And from there, you're taken on a journey, both sad and a little absurd. A wooden cart rattling past with corpses, squeaking like an ice cream truck, while the market turns into a medieval social network buzzing with rumors of every kind. So, are you ready to step into this film yourself? You jolt awake, not because of a nightmare, but because the church bell suddenly crashes, pounding through the night. The sound isn't and lingering like on a holiday morning. It's urgent, breathless, like someone shouting right into your ear. Wake up. Something pare has happened in the village. Everyone knows the night bell almost never rings. And if it does, it's never for good news. Outside, the wind whips through the thatched roof, carrying a cold bite that cuts to the bone. You hear dogs howling in long, eerie cries, as if they too sense something is wrong. Somewhere nearby, neighbors' whispers drift through raspy, anxious. In the dark, the village suddenly turns into an ink wash painting, just a few blurred strokes, but enough to spread fear. You lie still, holding your breath, but your heart hammers in your chest. You wonder, who has died? Has someone in the village already fallen? Or is it worse? Has the plague, the word everyone dreads to speak aloud, begun creeping through the gates? You remember yesterday, when a porter came back from the market far away, face pale, saying that in the next village someone had dropped dead after just a fever. At the time, you thought just gossip, nothing serious. But now, tonight, the ringing of the church bell feels like proof, a bright red seal of fate, stamped right before your eyes. In that moment, you know you've been caught in a trap, not a mouse trap, not a hunting snare, but the trap of curiosity. People are strange like that, you know. Danger is waiting outside, yet your feet itch to go. You think about how it's just like those later horror films. The character hears a strange noise, and instead of locking the door and going back to sleep, they grab a lantern and investigate. And the audience screams, Don't go out there, you idiot! But now, you're the fool in that scene. You throw on a rough wool coat, shivering not only from the cold, but from the foggy uncertainty ahead. Your hand slides the latch open, the wood creaking as if complaining. Do we really have to go out? Stepping onto the porch, the wind slaps your face, carrying the damp, earthy smell of wet grass, and somewhere, the faint, smoky trace of a neighbor's dying fire. The air is thick, like a damp blanket wrapping around you, smothering. The dirt path stretches under the pale moon, speckled with faint glimmers, as if someone had sprinkled salt across the dark. Each house lies silent, yet a window here and there leaks a thin, trembling strip of golden light, like anxious eyes watching from the shadows. In the distance, the church tower looms still and solemn, yet its bell keeps hammering down, each toll like a blow driving fear deeper into your chest. You walk on, hearing your cloth sandals scuff against the ground, tangled with the frantic rhythm of your heartbeat. Neighbors shuffle out one by one, faces pale, eyes wide, as if fear itself had woken earlier than they did. Every gaze points toward the church, where the heavy wooden doors stand slightly ajar, spilling a flicker of firelight. You swallow hard, your throat suddenly dry, as if you'd swallowed a fistful of ash. One question beats again and again in your mind. Is it? Here already, you know you're about to face the truth. But before you can think further, your feet push you forward faster, as though fear itself were pulling you straight toward it. And so, you begin to weave through the crowd, moving toward the unending toll of the bell, where the cold truth waits behind the church doors. Just as you squeeze past the restless throng at the gate, a clattering sound rises from a narrow alley, heavy, hollow, wood against wood, like a sigh forged in iron. A wooden cart crawls forward, its wheels carving deep grooves into the damp earth. The horse pulling it doesn't neigh, only bows its head, plodding slowly, as if it too knows the weight it carries. On the cart, an old cloth drapes over the load, blotched with lifeless gray. The night wind lifts its edge, revealing a pale face beneath, eyes shut tight, lips slightly parted, as though the dead still had something to say, cut short before it could be spoken. A chill streaks down your spine, as if an unseen hand had brushed the back of your neck. Villagers on either side of the road shrink against the walls. No one screams. No one cries. They only watch in silence, their eyes fixed on the burdened cart as though it were some wild beast, ready to sink its teeth into anyone foolish enough to step close. An old woman, trembling, makes the sign of the cross, her hand shaking harder than the flame of her oil lamp. A child is pulled tight into his mother's arms, round eyes wide with fear, not understanding, but knowing well enough to stay quiet. You slow your steps, your chest tightening with a question that hovers in your mind. Why is death coming so quickly, so often? Yesterday, there was a burial. The day before as well. Never in your memory has the church bell tolled there many times. People often say, death is natural. Everyone must go. But natural doesn't mean relentless. Day after day, pounding in waves that never cease. You lift your head and look to the sky. Tonight, the moon is dull, its silver glow blurred with ash, like an oil lamp running low. Maybe even heaven is weary of watching this scene. Your breath comes fast and heavy, and you can't tell anymore if it's from the cold or from fear. In that moment, you feel small, no more than a speck of dust caught in a storm, never knowing when you might be swept away. The wooden cart rattles past, leaving deep grooves etched in the earth behind it. The musty, sour smell of the shroud drifts through the air, mingling with the faint smoke of household fires, until it feels as though you're swallowing a fistful of ashes. You wonder, was this someone you knew? Someone you once greeted in the morning? It's strange while they were alive. You hardly noticed. But seeing them now, lying still beneath that cloth, you feel a hollow space open inside you. The crowd stays silent. No one dares step closer. Everyone holds back, letting the cart pass like a poisonous wind. Only the wheels keep knocking out their dry rhythm, dragging on like a lifeless funeral chant. And with each heavy clatter, you realize that trap of curiosity you fell into earlier has widened. Now there's no thought of returning to bed, because clearly something is stalking the whole village, and there's no hiding from it. The cart vanishes down the road, but the image of that pale face burns into your mind. It lingers like streaks of fire you still see after closing your eyes. You swallow hard, trying to shake it off, but it won't leave. And then, as the church bell rings out again from the tower, you know you'll have to keep walking to uncover why death is now scattered across every corner of this little village. You stand frozen for a long moment after the cart is gone, your chest turned upside down. Into that hollow space rushes a memory from last week, sharp as if it happened only yesterday. It was market day, filled with the cries of vendors, the bartering voices, the clatter of chickens and ducks so loud you'd think there was no room left for worry. And yet, within all that noise, you caught strange whispers threading through, like a hidden stream slipping between stones. Back then, a wandering trader from far away passed through. His load of goods wasn't much, but his shifty eyes seemed to carry some heavy secret. People crowded around to question him, and soon enough, the rumor spread like fire catching dry straw. There's a black sickness coming. Those who catch it burn with fever one night, and by morning they're cold as stone. You still remember the fish seller trembling, dropping her basket to the ground, stammering, "Dear Lord." Then it's the end of days. The bustling market suddenly sagged, as if an invisible hand yanked the brakes. Someone shouted, "It's God's wrath. He sees mankind's sins, lust, sloth, greed, and now he punishes us." But an old man with a silver beard snapped back, "No, it's the poisoned wind from the east. The foreigners brought the plague, and the wind carries it here." Quarreling broke out. Some crossed themselves in panic. Others pulled scarves over their mouths, no one sure what to believe. You stood in the crowd, at first smirking to yourself, "Just another scare story. It'll never reach me." But now, as tonight's church bell tolls without rest, as the wooden cart of the dead creaked by, those scattered words no longer feel distant. They stitch together like shards of a nightmare, painting you never wished to see whole. You remember the trader's eyes, clearly tired, resigned, the same as the horse pulling the cart tonight, as if both had already witnessed too much death. And thinking of the market crowd that day, you suddenly see your own village tonight in the same way, stunned, silent, lost between truth and rumor, weighed down only by fear pressing on every shoulder. The wind whistles through the eaves outside, pulling you back to the present. A shiver runs through you, the back of your neck damp and cold. One question hangs in your mind. If the rumor is true, if the black sickness is coming, would you have the strength to escape? Or will the day come when you're the one lying on that rattling wooden cart, your face revealed beneath a worn cloth, while the villagers press silently against the walls to watch you pass? You try to swallow down the fear, but it sticks in your throat. Those scattered tales you once laughed off now echo like prophecy, and you know you can't dismiss them anymore. As long as the bell keeps tolling, as long as the dead are carried out night after night. Those fragments will haunt you, forcing you to search for the truth. You remember clearly how that market day didn't end with bargaining voices, but with a cough. A harsh, tearing cough that sliced through the lively noise like a knife through thin cloth. The sound came from a stranger, dusty clothes, gray face from travel. He stood in the middle of the market path, doubled over, clutching his chest, each cough tearing out of him as though his lungs were shredding. The crowd reacted like a flock of sparrows spotting a hawk. People recoiled so fast they dropped baskets of vegetables, even tossed aside chickens still tied by their feet. The chatter fell dead, replaced by an awful silence, broken only by that ragged, echoing cough. Hands flew to cover mouths and noses, eyes wide with a mix of terror and disgust, as if death itself now had a body, standing right there. A chill slices down your spine, goosebumps rising sharp along your skin. One thought flashes in your mind. Could it be? The sickness has already arrived. The rumors of the Black Plague you'd been hearing all week suddenly solidify, undeniable before your eyes. No longer distant stories from some faraway city. No longer whispers passed along. It's here now, right in the middle of your village market. The coughing merchant buckles to his knees, spitting onto the ground, phlegm streaked with red like rust. A basket seller screams, scrambling to grab her goods and drag her little girl away. Someone snarls, "Drive him out." He's brought the poisoned wind, yet no one dares step forward. The whole market shrinks back, a tightening circle around a dark blot on a sheet of white paper. You find yourself swept back with the others, but your eyes stay locked on the stranger. That figure, shaking, helpless, at once pitiful and terrifying, spreads in your mind like spilled ink. You shiver, and yet you pity him. Inside, you're torn, one voice urging you to show mercy, another shrieking at you to run before death clings to you too. No one helps. Not a single hand reaches out. The man lifts his head, eyes glazed, as if begging silently. But the words won't come. By now, the crowd has retreated to the farthest stalls, leaving a hideous void where only he remains, he and his cough. The market that was once crowded now looks like an empty courtyard swept clean by ghosts. Suddenly, you recall the eyes of the horse pulling the wooden cart last night, tired, lowered. That same look now glimmers in the stranger's face, only this time it's laced with something more: loneliness, rejection. And what terrifies you most is the thought that flashes unbidden. One day, if you cough like that, your village will see you the same way. They'll back away, fall silent, and leave you to it. A cold wind whips through the market, swirling dust around his feet. The stranger coughs again, a violent fit, then collapses, his thin body shuddering like a falling leaf. You hold your breath, heart racing, wanting to turn away, but unable to. The image stamps itself into your mind, like a carved seal pressed deep, one that will never fade. That market day didn't end with the usual drum signaling close, but with a frantic scattering, everyone rushing home, bolting doors tight. And you, caught in the chaos, could still hear that cough echoing in your ears, pounding like the night bell, the cough of a stranger, the cough that signaled a door swinging open for death to pour into the village. You quicken your steps, heart still racing, knowing deep down that from that moment on, daily life had already changed, and the shadows of strangers would follow you for a long time, like an omen you could never brush aside. That morning, you thought it was just another ordinary day. Weak sunlight stretched across the treetops. A thin mist still blanketed the fields. The sounds of hoes striking earth, farmers calling to one another, all felt as familiar as ever. But then, piercing through that comfort, came a chilling sound, a woman's scream. You whip your head around. Out in the rice field, a neighbor, healthy, laughing only moments ago, suddenly collapses, clutching his chest, legs trembling. The people around him panic. Someone tries to reach out to help, but the instant their hand brushes his shirt, they jerk back, face drained of color, because just beneath his collar, swollen black buboes rise, stretching tight as though blood and darkness were both struggling to burst free. You freeze, breathless. The sight strikes like an icy blade through your eyes. Buboes sprouting in the armpit, the groin, the neck, places you'd only heard about in whispers, enough to sicken the stomach. But now they're right before you alive, swelling, darkened and purple. The man groans, his breath ragged and broken like a torn bellows, until at last his body convulses and then slowly falls still. The crowd erupts in panic. Farmers drop their hoes and sickles as if tossing away their own fates. A mother screams, clutching her child and dragging him off the field, covering his face with a cloth as they flee. The cries of children, the shouts of villagers, the pounding of feet through the mud together, they turn the once quiet field into a blazing cauldron of chaos. You stand frozen, your legs locked, unable to step forward or back. In your mind, the marketplace rumors replay the black sickness. The Buboes rise. Death within days. Now those words aren't just idle wind in your ears. They've taken shape before your eyes. Brutal and grotesque. Villagers rush back toward the town. Doors slam shut. Wooden bars dropped firmly into place, as if trying to block out some unseen thing slipping between the shadows. Children are herded indoors, windows shuttered, fabric curtains pulled down tight, like chicks shoved into a cage to hide from hawks. You hear mothers calling for their little ones down every lane. Hear voices crying out, "Bolt the doors," now echoing across rooftops. The air in the village changes in an instant. The usual bustle vanishes, replaced by suffocating silence. Only ragged breathing remains, and the muffled sobs leaking from behind closed doors. People speak only with glances, with trembling hands, no one daring to shape the words aloud. The whole village feels like it's holding its breath before an invisible monster that has just stepped through the gates. You tilt your head back toward the sky. But today, the heavens aren't clear. Gray clouds gather in heavy masses, casting a bleak shadow across the fields, as though black ink were being spilled over the earth. You swallow hard, your throat dry as dust, and realize that the day everyone dreaded has truly begun. And in that dreadful stillness, you feel yourself pulled into a whirlpool, knowing for certain that the sickness will not stop with the neighbor who collapsed. It will crawl across to other doors, knock against other rooftops, and one day it may come to your very own home. Just a few days later, your village is no longer the same. Houses that once glowed with lamplight at night are now dark. No smoke curling from chimneys. No smell of simmering greens or baked bread drifting through the lanes. It's as if someone snuffed out the whole village, leaving only ashes sinking into heavy darkness. Passing by, you see every door shut tight, and yet so silent it feels like no breath remains inside. Whispers spread that in only a handful of days, many households have gone completely dark. Children no longer laugh and run in the yards. Elders no longer sit outside to warm themselves in the sun. Every familiar sound has vanished, leaving only the wind pushing through ragged, thatched roofs. And here and there, a door left ajar shows a sliver of shadow inside, as if quietly admitting that those within are already gone, gone without a sound, without farewell. In the village, no one dares touch the sick anymore. Even the dearest loved ones keep their distance, staring at each other across empty space, trembling with fear. A mother clutches her chest, sobbing as her son coughs and gasps inside. But she cannot bring herself to step closer. A father sits slumped on his porch, listening to his wife's moans from within, whispering prayers under his breath, even as each cry from inside tears his heart to pieces. You, too, cannot bring yourself to enter those houses. Each time you pass, you hold your breath and hurry your steps, as though even letting your breath brush the doorway might let the sickness slip out to cling to you. Strange how the roads you once knew so well now feel like a hidden graveyard. You keep walking, heavy with fear, as if carrying a dark cloud ready to burst over your head. Night falls, and the church bell tolls again. But now, no one rushes out to listen. Everyone hides inside, doors bolted tight, candlelight flickering across gaunt faces. Each chime no longer feels like a prayer. It's a cold countdown for the entire village. You sit in the darkness, heart pounding wildly. Each time you sneeze, you flinch, your hand pressing to your chest, checking if any swelling has begun to rise. Your throat feels dry, your breath uneven. You can't tell if it's fear or if the sickness has already taken root. In your mind, a whispering question won't let go. Tomorrow, will it be my turn? You try to reassure yourself. I'm young, I'm strong, I'll be fine. But then you remember the neighbor was strong as an ox, and yet he fell in just a single morning. You recall the stranger who coughed until he collapsed in the marketplace, the scream of the child yanked home in panic, the weary eyes of the horse pulling the wooden cart. All of them seem to tie into one invisible rope, binding you toward an ending you can't escape. You can't endure it any longer. The bell keeps striking each night, every toll like a blade splitting your heart. The shut doors, the cold hearths, have turned the village into a thick, suffocating darkness. In that despair, you decide to go to the church, the only place still lit by candles, the place whispered to hold a trace of hope. The church looms in the night, its tower standing silent like a gatekeeper over a land of the dead. Inside, sickly candlelight flickers, shadows stretching long across the wooden pews. You step in, your cloth sandals tapping against the cold stone floor, each sound echoing as if carrying your fear with it. At the altar, the old priest bows low, hands clasped, lips murmuring a prayer. As you draw closer, he lifts his head, his eyes, deep and clouded, seem to look straight through you. This is the wrath of God, he says, his voice hoarse but ringing out clear, like a verdict handed down. People have lived in sin too long. God has turned his back, and now he sends the plague to sweep clean, to purify. His words roll through the empty nave like thunder echoing in a cavern. You stand rooted to the spot, heart pounding. Inside you, something tears in two. Part of you wants to believe, after all. The prayers and teachings raised you from childhood, but another part fights fiercely. If this is God, why so cruel? Why must the children, the innocent, die? The question sparks in your mind like a flame, burning through your fragile faith. The priest fixes his gaze on you, eyes aged and heavy, as if they'd seen 100 winters. Do not doubt, he continues, for doubt itself is sin. God punishes without distinction. Whoever survives is the chosen one. Then he bows again, murmuring prayers, as though he too is trying to bind himself to that thin thread of belief. You turn your face away, but the words echo back, deafening. To believe or not, both paths frighten you. For if you believe, you must accept that God is angry and that everyone around you is merely a victim of divine punishment. And if you don't, it means nothing is protecting you. Only an invisible, icy sickness knocking at each door. In your heart, faith had once been armor. Now it cracks, turning into a blade that cuts back. Each prayer, instead of soothing, makes the fear grow, like a war drum urging death closer. You step out of the church, breath heavy. Outside, the night wind whistles through door gaps, carrying the dog's howls and the hiss of dying candles. All of it blends into a dark, hollow chorus pressing against your chest. You lift your eyes to the bell tower rising into the night, and it no longer feels like a symbol of hope. Instead, it looms like a giant finger pointing straight down, forcing you to bow your head and accept a sentence Inside, a question rises, sharp. Can faith save me? Or is it the very thing pushing me deeper into fear? And as you turn away, that question keeps repeating, etched into every heartbeat, impossible to escape. The next morning, the silent village lane suddenly bursts with noise. From afar, you hear a strange voice calling out nothing like anyone from your village. Stepping outside, you see a figure in a black cloak, hood pulled low to shadow most of his face, leaving only eyes that burn like embers. In his hand swings a sack, and his cry rings clear, potion against the plague. One sip, and the sickness flees 10 miles. No more fear of disease, no more fear of God's wrath. The villagers swarm like fish chasing bait. One by one, they pour out, crowding around him. A sharp, acrid smell of herbs drifts from the sack, mixing with the damp earth and the stench of fear. Someone thrusts forward a chicken with trembling hands. Another rushes with a basket of grain, desperate to trade for a clay flask no bigger than a fist. An old woman, empty-handed, collapses to her knees, pleading, "Just one drop. Please, my child is burning with fever." You stand at the edge of the crowd, your heart pounding. The sight steals your breath. Just yesterday, these same villagers dared not even touch the sick. Now they push and jostle, colliding with one another, desperate to clutch at cloudy liquid from who knows where. Their eyes gleam, not with trust, but with desperation. With no other choices left, they cling to any hope tossed their way. The cloaked man pours flask after flask, his hands quick, his voice never stopping its chant of mystic promises. This not only drives away the plague, but banishes demons. Drink, and no evil will dare approach. Not even God's wrath will touch you. His words slip into the villagers' ears like honey laced with ash. Heads nod, tears stream, some weeping as if convinced they've just been saved. And you just stand there, your thoughts tangled like a snarl of thread. One voice in your head whispers, "Buy it. If you don't, you'll be the next one on the wooden cart." But another voice bites back, bitter. That filthy water is nothing but a trick. Are you really going to drink fake hope just to lull yourself inside you? The two voices pull against each other like wrestlers in a tug of war, neither giving way. You look around and see even your closest people pressing forward to trade for the potion. Your childhood friend offers up his fattest hen. The neighbor hugs a whole sack of grain. His face hollow, but his eyes shining as if he'd found treasure. In that instant, you feel adrift. If you don't buy, will you be the fool, quietly waiting for death? But if you do, will you be stepping into a sweet trap, swallowing poison without knowing? The cloaked man sweeps his gaze across the crowd and stops on you. That look pierces like a needle straight through your heart, chilling you to the bone. His voice turns hard. You there, what are you waiting for? Or do you want your body on the cart tomorrow? The crowd snaps their heads toward you, eyes full of pity, reproach, even anger. You suddenly feel like an animal cornered, every stare pushing you toward the hand holding out the bottle. You swallow hard, your trembling hand slipping into your pocket. One question coils inside you, sly and desperate at once. If I don't buy, how long can I survive? When the cloaked seller's figure disappears beyond the village gate, you still haven't untangled whether you've been duped. But before you can think further, the sound of hooves pounds from afar. The ground shudders with each strike, dust rising as if the village is about to be swept into a new storm. People rush out, only to fall silent when they see the soldiers in dark armor riding in. They waste no words. They plant a massive wooden board, its blood-red letters still reeking of paint, spelling out a message as cold as iron. Anyone who flees will be executed on the spot. The whole village falls silent. No one dares breathe too loud. The wind slips through the gate, snapping the hanging banners so they flap like black wings beating against your face. People gather, then scatter again, their eyes fixed on the board as if it had turned into an invisible guillotine. From that moment, you know the village has become a sealed prison. Outside are the soldiers. Inside is the plague. And between those jaws of iron, there is no way out. You walk back toward the narrow lane, heart heavy as stone. Each house is barred tighter than before, wooden doors creaking like they're crying out at being locked shut. Inside, children wail, their sobs bouncing off walls and echoing into neighboring homes. Quarrels break out, a wife blaming her husband for going to the market, a husband shouting why they didn't flee sooner, dishes shattering against the floor. The entire village feels like a pressure cooker, steam hissing, ready to explode. You glance up at the village gate, where the board sways in the wind. It doesn't just hang there, It hangs inside your mind, like an invisible hand gripping your throat. And you wonder, is this the decree of God or of men? If both have turned their backs, where is the path left to survive? In the days after the gates were shut, the village no longer feels like a place for the living. The air is so stifling that every breath feels like pulling in smoke and ash, thick and heavy. The villagers no longer whisper in fear. Their voices have sharpened into suspicion, irritation. A single cough, even the faintest, draws every stare, as if the word plague bearer were suddenly carved into the forehead of the one who coughed. Those eyes cut sharp and cold, turning the whole street into a courtroom in the dark. Families once bound together around meals now fracture apart. Inside each home, arguments flare over dwindling jars of rice, the last potatoes dug from the earth. A husband slams the table. I told you we should have saved more. A wife screams back. If we hadn't eaten, the children would have starved already. The children's cries pierce through, stretching the noise until it becomes unbearable. The wooden walls can't hold back that tension. It seeps out, spilling into the wind, until the whole village becomes a harsh chorus of despair. You walk past and hear every fragment of every quarrel, every sob, and it feels as if the houses themselves are tearing apart from within. People no longer trust their neighbors, no longer even trust their own kin. Everyone is afraid of being dragged down, of losing the last scraps of food they've hidden away. You see a man hurriedly stash a sack of grain behind a wall, his eyes darting like a thief's. You see an old woman clutching a pot of potatoes, her wrinkled face etched with fear and resentment all at once. The air grows so suffocating you can barely breathe. Sitting inside your darkened home, listening to the shouting spill from every direction, you feel trapped in an iron cage slowly tightening. Fear is no longer just about the plague. It has curdled into hatred, seeping into the blood, as if the village is already rotting away before death even knocks on the door. That night, a village sunk in darkness, and coughing suddenly flares with the red blaze of torches. You hear shouting swell, feet pounding as a mob surges toward the edge of the village. Your heart lurches, because in the cold wind carrying a tang of smoke, you know this is no fire for warmth. It is a fire stoked by hatred. They have found a culprit, or rather, they have chosen one to bear the weight of their fear. And the name on everyone's lips is the old woman who lives alone in a thatched hut by the forest. She has always been reclusive, her white hair tangled like cobwebs, spending her days gathering herbs and muttering words no one understood. The villagers once called her the old herbal crone. Now that name has shifted into the witch who spread the plague. The crowd gathers before her hut, torches raised high, flames painting the night sky red. Their eyes burn with fear, mixed with rage, like beasts driven into a corner who have finally found prey to tear apart. Someone screams, "She's the one who summoned the sickness. She cursed us, made the whole village wither away." Another voice roars in reply, "Burn her. Only then will the plague end." You push your way into the crowd, your chest tightening. Firelight flickers across every face, twisting them into warped, crimson masks of fury. Children's cries blend with shouts, the stamp of feet, and the sharp crackle of burning wood. The village, silent for so long under the plague, now erupts like a wildfire, devouring its own reason. The old woman steps out onto her porch, trembling in the torchlight. Her eyes are cloudy, her thin hand raised as if to explain. But her voice is swallowed by the roar. No one wants to hear. A clump of dirt flies and hits her shoulder, then a stone. The crowd roars louder, the stench of blood and smoke mingling, stabbing into your nose. You stand rooted, heart racing. Inside you, one voice whispers, "She's innocent. She's only a lost old woman." But another voice shouts back, "If no one bears the blame, this village will explode." They need a scapegoat to believe death can be stopped. And you realize, inside that circle of firelight, truth no longer matters. Only fear remains, hardening into violence, driving the whole village toward a fate no one can escape. Flames leap when a torch is hurled against the hut's thatched wall. Fire catches as if the house had been waiting to burn. In an instant, it rises red and high, swallowing the old woman's scream. You stand there, feet heavy, as if buried in earth, eyes wide, yet wishing you were dreaming. The crowd screams, their cries tangled with the crackling of the fire. The flames paint their faces into something no longer human, but a pack of beasts thrilled by the kill. You hear someone shout, "Burn it all. The plague will end." Another voice cheers, "God will forgive us." The shouts pound together, drowning out even the night wind. You clutch your chest, your heart tightening with every beat. In front of you is the image of the lone woman collapsing in the flames, her silver hair blazing like a torch, her cry lost in the thick smoke. The sight fills you with terror and a choking guilt. You know she had no magic, no power to call the sickness into the village. She was only a stray shadow, forced into the role of culprit to mask everyone's helplessness. Smoke coils upward, stinging your eyes. You see neighbors, the same ones who once shared bread with you now shouting, hurling stones, throwing more wood. A child, urged on by its parents, tosses a handful of straw with trembling hands, its eyes wide and vacant, not even understanding what it has joined. And in that instant, you realize the plague doesn't just rot human flesh. It rots the heart and the mind as well. A searing question twists in your head like a knife. Are people more frightening than the plague itself? For the sickness kills silently. But this frenzy turns friends and neighbors into executioners, turning fear into fire that burns their own kind. The last flames die down, leaving only a mound of gray ash. The crowd falls quiet, their breathing ragged, as if waking from a spell. But you know, this silence isn't peace. It's the hollow after a storm, the pit of guilt that will cling to each of them. You once thought you were used to death, used to the tolling bell, used to the wooden cart clattering down the lane. But nothing could prepare you for the moment you see someone you love trembling in fever. That day, in the dim room lit by a flickering candle, you watch their skin go pale, sweat pouring like rain, their lips cracked and dry, their breathing rasps, a faint whimper like a dry leaf crushed underfoot. One touch of their hand is enough to feel the heat burning, like a live coal. You kneel beside them, wiping at the sweat, pulling the blanket up to keep them warm, then yanking it back again, afraid they're too hot. You don't know what you're doing. Every clumsy gesture is just a way to feel you're still holding on. Each sip of water you tip to their lips, each whispered comfort, carries the thin hope it might keep them here a little longer. But those clouded eyes meet yours only for a heartbeat before sliding away, like a small boat about to be swept off the dock. The whole house sinks into despair. Outside, the wind whistles through the cracks in the door, but inside you hear only the ragged rush of their breathing and the hammering of your own heart. You remember all the times you shared simple meals together, the laughter during harvest days. Now it all dissolves into a terrible fear as you see death no longer knocking from afar, but sitting down right beside the bed. You bow your head, whispering prayers. But even you know no words are strong enough to drive back the plague that is swallowing everything. You run out into the lane, knocking on doors, hoping someone will help. But every door is slammed shut, your knocking echoing back, then fading into silence. A door cracks open just a little, eyes glint with fear. Then it slams again. You hear a whisper from inside. Don't open it, or the sickness will come in. The words prick like needles into your heart. Your loved one is dying, but no hand dares reach out. You go back to your house, where candlelight flickers over the pale face on the bed. The moans drag on, broken and thin, squeezing your heart with every sound. They rise again and again, like cries for help, like a slow saw cutting through wood, sawing deeper into your mind. Each groan makes you want to rush forward, to shake them, to shout, "Don't leave me." But your hands tremble, helpless, only able to press a cool cloth to their forehead and hope for a miracle. The night stretches on without end. Outside, the village is silent, only the wind hissing through the thatch and the distant howling of dogs. But inside your house, that weak, lingering moan still threads through the air, mingling with the frantic beat of your heart. You feel chained, unable to run anywhere, unable to call for help. Only two people remain, a dying one and a despairing one, trapped together in the dark. And in that moment, you understand it isn't the plague, but loneliness itself that is the sharpest blade, cutting straight into the soul. Dawn hasn't fully broken yet. The fog lies thick over the fields behind the village like a burial shroud. You stand there with an old shovel in your numb hands, no feeling left in your fingers. There's no one to call, no one to ask. The name of your loved one, whispered so feebly last night, now echoes only inside your chest. And here, on this cold patch of earth, you must do something you never thought you could dig a grave. Each thrust of the shovel into the ground sounds like your heart splintering piece by piece. Damp soil clings to your hands and clothes in cold, heavy clumps. You dig deeper, little by little, sweat and tears mixing into bitter drops that fall into the pit. The morning wind scours your back. The smell of wild grass blends with the scent of freshly turned earth, making you sway. Every time you look up, The gray sky seems to press lower, heavier, onto your shoulders. When the hole is finally deep enough, you turn to look at the small body wrapped in a worn cloth. Pale sunlight breaks over you, but it cannot melt the cold in your heart. You kneel, your hands trembling as you gently lower your loved one into the earth. In that moment, every sound around you dies away. Only your ragged breathing remains, your heart pounding wildly, and the soft, hollow thud of soil falling as you begin to cover them. Each handful of earth you drop buries not just a body, but a piece of your own soul. The pain peaks until there are no more tears left, only a hollow space gouged out inside you. You realize you're no longer afraid of dying. The most terrifying thing is having to keep living without them. And there, over the cold earth, you whisper a last plea. Sleep in peace. If there's any miracle at all, let this pain never come again. After the day you buried your loved one with your own hands, the house became a cold, empty shell. No candle left to light, no meal left to share across the table. You sit in a daze, listening to the wind slip through the cracks, and understand that if you stay, you're only waiting for your own turn to fall. That thought clings to you, slowly hardening into a reckless decision you must escape. You must break free from the cage that calls itself a quarantined village. Night falls. The moon hides behind the clouds, its silver light shattered as if trying to shield the fugitive. You wrap your rough coat tight and step outside, your heart pounding with every beat. The familiar lane stretches out endlessly, each footstep sounding like a drumbeat in your ears. In the distance, the village gate looms dark, the guard silhouettes rising like stone statues. You press yourself against the fence line, weeds scraping your skin, but you stay silent and endure. Every time a guard swings his torch, you hold your breath, your heart seeming to stop inside your chest. At the stretch of old wooden fencing, you crouch low, your trembling hands clawing at the soil, searching for an opening just big enough to slip through. The night wind lashes your neck, carrying the scent of cold ashes and the faint reek of death leaking from shuttered homes. You bite your lip and inch forward, splinters scraping your back raw. Cold sweat drips into your stinging eyes, but you don't stop. In your head, there is only one cry, screaming over and over. Get out. Get out of the place that has swallowed everything. At last, when your hand breaks through to the soil outside, your breath bursts out, short and frantic. But before relief can come, the heavy steps of a guard echo dangerously close. You press yourself flat against the ground, damp earth flooding your nose. A torch beam sweeps overhead, golden light cutting across, nearly catching the mist of your breath. You grit your teeth, your chest clenched, each second dragging on like a lifetime. Only when the footsteps fade do you dare to inch forward again, like a swimmer pushing through a black river, desperate to escape the cliff looming just behind. You squeeze through the fence, leaving behind the weary sigh of the quarantined village. Ahead lies a shadowed road stretching into the night, a path newly opened, yet already stained with death. Your steps drag heavy, unsure if you're walking toward life or only plunging into another pit. But one truth is certain: turning back is no longer an option. The night is silent, broken only by the long wail of wind sweeping across abandoned fields. As dawn bleeds pale across the sky, you pass the first village, and your heart seizes. No market voices, no laughter of children, only crumbling houses, doors yawning open, yards littered with broken bowls and toppled baskets. In the road lies an overturned wooden cart, one wheel snapped clean off, its frame streaked with dark brown stains of dried blood. You slow your steps, heart pounding, eyes scanning, and then you see them, bodies strewn like scarecrows blown down by the wind. One collapsed on a doorstep, arms stretched out in a frozen plea. Another sprawled in the yard, eyes wide open to the sky, yet the sky stares back cold, unfeeling. A small child's body lies beside its mother, both wrapped in a worn blanket, as if asleep, but long past breath. The crows scream harshly overhead, wings thrashing as they circle the rooftops. They drop down, tearing at stiffened flesh, then rise again, their cries shredding the air. You shudder, pulling your cloak tight across your face, but the cawing sticks like sharp iron blades in your ears. The stench of death hangs thick, so strong your throat burns dry, as though you've swallowed a mouthful of ash. You quicken your pace, but the sight of one desolate village after another won't let you escape. Everywhere you pass repeats the same scene: doors hanging ajar, bodies scattered, crows circling above the roofs. No bells, no prayers, only a thick, heavy silence ripped apart by the hoarse cries of blackbirds. Each step feels like walking through an endless, nameless graveyard, where the whole world has stopped breathing. You stop and look around, and a question rises inside you. What was the point of fleeing my village if the world beyond is just as ruined? Yet your legs keep moving, not out of hope, but instinct, out of fear, out of knowing that if you stop, you'll soon be one of the silent bodies lying by the roadside. The dirt path beneath your feet has become a winding gray ribbon, twisting through dry grass and withered hedges. Each step feels like pressing down on the earth's own sigh. Brittle and broken, you run on, heart hammering, its beat blending with the long wail of the wind, like the world itself mourning. The gusts whip your face, freezing as slaps, carrying the smell of ash and decay from the villages you've left behind. You no longer know where you're running. Ahead lies only a narrow track fading into mist, a thin silver thread lost in the gray fabric of sky and land. Still, your legs drive forward, trembling, heavy, but unwilling to stop. In your head, broken prayers tumble, no longer forming words, just sounds cast into the wind. Please let me escape. Please let me live. Along the road, you find traces of those who came before a worn-out shoe, a torn cloth bag, a cold handful of ash left behind. Each remnant feels like a warning. Someone else once fled this way, once ran as you do now, but left only scraps and dust. You pause for a heartbeat, staring up at the murky sky, and wonder if you're searching for life or following a path into yet another graveyard. But then the crows cry out from far away, their raspy calls urging you to keep running. You clutch your coat tighter, breath coming fast, white puffs spilling into the mist. Your feet stumble along the path, every rock you trip over sending a jolt of pain up your legs. Yet you don't stop. Deep down, you know to stop is to turn to ash. To stop is to let the plague and the loneliness swallow you whole. You run and pray at the same time. Each prayer feels like a stone tossed into a deep well, never knowing if an echo will come back. But still you whisper, still you hope, because it's the only thing left to hold on to along this hopeless road. And in a fleeting moment, you realize it's these prayers, fragile as they are, that keep your legs from collapsing, that keep your heart beating one more time amid so much ruin. You thought you'd grown used to the smell of death, to the bodies scattered by the roadside. But as you step into the square of the town, your legs freeze, wanting to turn back instantly. Before you, the dead no longer lie scattered. They are piled into heaps, jumbled like bundles of rotten straw, but cold and stiff. The gray light of early morning falls across it all, turning the scene into a painting of death that twists your stomach into knots. Flies swarm thickly, their buzzing a relentless, ghostly music. They land on eyes, on mouths, crawl across the thin arms sticking out from the mounds. The sound is so dense, it drowns out the frantic thud of your heart. You clamp your hand over your nose, but the stench of rot still floods in. So strong, it feels like it's burning your lungs. Every step you take sends clouds of flies bursting up like black smoke, only to settle again, unwilling to leave the rotting flesh. You look around and see the square, once a place of gatherings, markets, and festivals, now transformed into an open-air graveyard. The walls surrounding it are smeared with streaks of dried blood. The windows of the houses are shut tight, but you know there's no life behind them. Silence hangs heavy, broken only by the endless buzzing of flies. A grotesque choir filling the air. And in that moment, you realize this isn't just a dead town. It's a mirror, reflecting the future of any place the plague touches. You stand frozen, hands trembling, a piercing question echoing again. Is there anywhere left that hasn't become a graveyard? Anywhere I can still find life? The flies buzz back in reply, steady and unrelenting, as if they already know the answer. You leave the death square, your legs still shaking from what you've just witnessed, but only a few alleys away. You catch sight of figures draped in long black robes, wide-brimmed hats shadowing their faces, their features hidden behind long beaked masks. Physicians, or rather, eerie shapes the world calls plague doctors. They move slowly, one hand gripping a wooden staff, the other carrying jars of pungent herbs, sharp smoke spilling into the air. The acrid scent fills your nose, masking some of the stench of death. But it cannot cover the truth laid bare. The sick are still dying. Before your eyes, a house door yawns open. Inside lies the body of a man, curled and stiff, black swellings blooming along his neck. One of the doctors steps forward, tapping the body lightly with his staff. The corpse holds rigid, lifeless. He only shakes his head, then turns away, leaving behind the guttural cries of the grieving family. You watch as they spray their herbs everywhere into corners of houses, across the cloths draped over the dead. They believe the scent will chase away poisoned air, that the herbs stuffed into the beaks of their masks can purify what they breathe. But to you, it feels like nothing more than a desperate performance. Because no matter how far the smoke drifts, the coughing still rattles from house after house, and within days, each of those homes will become a tomb. The villagers follow the doctors with eyes full of both hope and resentment. Some beg, "Please, save my husband." Others shout in anger, "You only blow smoke, you save no one." But the figures in black keep moving, silent and heavy, like soulless shadows. A chill runs through you. They look like crows circling slowly over a graveyard, powerless to stop death, only making its presence more haunting. Pressed against a wall, your heart clenches tight. The image of those long, hollow masks forces a bitter truth on you. There is no cure strong enough, no hand powerful enough. People can pray, they can burn herbs, but the sick still die, one by one, house by house. And in that moment, you understand even those called physicians are only fragile humans, hiding their helplessness behind those grotesque beaks. At the end of the alley, you stare out into the haze, thick with ash. Figures in bird masks shuffle past, and the houses around you fall, one by one, into sealed-up graves. And there, the realization cuts into you like a cold blade. This plague is no longer just your village's curse. It has swept through towns, through distant neighborhoods, and it will keep devouring anywhere there is human breath. You replay each image in your mind, the field where your neighbor collapsed, the ragged cough of the stranger at the market, the blaze rising as your village burned an innocent old woman alive. Then the deserted villages strewn with corpses, the sky black with crows, and now this death square where bodies are stacked in heaps. All of it knots together into one monstrous tapestry, not the tragedy of a single place, but a shadow spread across the world. Inside your chest, fear turns into a hollow, gaping space. If whole villages, towns, and cities are dying, then where are you running? Where is there left to find life? You lower your head, your trembling hand pressing against the cold, rough brick, feeling its grit bite into your skin. A question bursts up, choking you. Is there nowhere left to escape? Is the world itself rotting away under the invisible hand of the plague? You lift your face to the leaden sky, not a single ray of light breaking through. And for the first time, you realize the most terrifying truth isn't in the village bells. nor the execution boards, nor the flames consuming the condemned. It's here, in this cold knowledge, you are not alone in this calamity. All of humanity is writhing, the whole world gasping through the same death rattle. And as that truth cuts deep, your legs tremble, but do not stop. Because if death is everywhere, then the only thing left for you to carry is movement one more step, to live one more day in a world turning into a giant graveyard. You've walked for days, legs aching, heart shriveled from finding only corpses and deserted towns. But then, in a narrow alley between blotched gray walls, you hear something strange, a whisper, not the harsh cough of the sick, not the caw of crows, but a human voice alive, trembling, but still breathing. You slow, holding your breath to listen, and then, through a crack in a wooden door, you see the flicker of a candle. Inside, a small group huddles together. Just a few people, faces hollow, clothes in tatters, but their eyes still shine in the dark. They share the little food. They have a crust of bread, a few boiled potatoes, a bowl of thin water. Each one breaks their piece carefully, passing it along, their eyes grateful as if they'd been given gold. Afterward, they clasp hands and bow their heads in prayer. The words tremble, voices cracking, yet they rise like a thread binding the last survivors to a fragile faith. You stand outside, your heart trembling, stunned and moved all at once. In the middle of death, in the ruins of the world, there are still people alive, still hands offering a crust, still voices asking for something beyond mere existence. And suddenly, you feel a spark inside you. Not the fire that burned a woman, not the torches of a raging mob, but a warm flame, the kind that helps a lost soul stand for one more day. You step into the small room, your feet hesitating, as if afraid the sight before you might vanish if touched. The weary faces lift toward you, their eyes carrying the faint glow of survival. No one pushes you away. No one looks at you as if you carry death. Instead, they quietly shift, making space for you on the frayed mat laid across the dirt floor. A thin hand reaches out, placing a tiny crust of bread in your palm. The bread is hard, bland, but as it touches your tongue, you taste sweetness, as if the whole world has just remembered the flavor of life. They don't speak much, only keep sharing what little food remains, then bowing their heads together in prayer. The prayer rises slowly, not asking to drive away the plague, not wishing for riches. It carries only the simplest plea. Let us live one more day. You listen, your heart warming for the first time in many dark days. In the shadows, that prayer flickers like a small candle, wavering, but refusing to die. You look around and see every crease, every scar etched deep into their skin, signs of pain and loss. But beneath all that, there is something stronger than sickness, the will not to surrender. And you realize, hope isn't a blazing light from the heavens. It's only the faint glow of fireflies cupped in human hands. Yet if enough hands hold on, even that light is enough to guide the road ahead. Inside your chest, something stirs, not just fear anymore, but a longing to keep moving. No matter what tomorrow brings, you are no longer alone. You whisper with them, letting your prayer blend into the air, weaving an invisible thread that binds your heart to life. And in that moment, you know this fragile spark of hope is enough to resist the darkness swallowing the world. In the days after you found this small band of survivors, the air inside that little room feels a little less suffocating. But outside, the shadows still press close. And then, in hurried whispers, a new rumor begins to spread, flickering like sparks catching on dry straw. They say the plague is not God's curse, nor the spell of witches. It came on ships from the sea, from damp wooden holds stuffed with goods from faraway lands. On those ships, rats scurried in the dark, fleas nested deep inside sacks and crates, and it was they who carried death ashore, spilling into harbors, spreading through alleys, seeping into every home. Hearing it makes your stomach twist, for though it's only a rumor, it rings with a terrible logic. You remember the strange merchants who appeared in the market. Remember the hoarse cough of the man who collapsed in the crowd. Could it be that from those distant ships, the plague crept into this land, that humans themselves carried ruin here, chasing profit and trade, blind to the seeds of death hidden in every cargo? The thought chills you to the bone. The plague. It wasn't hurled down by the heavens, but borne on the backs of tiny, unseen creatures, rats and fleas, weaving silently, planting death across the world. You sit still, your mind tangled as those whispers sink deep. So all these days, the torches, the prayers, the violent executions, they were only bloody theater to soothe fear. The real culprits were never witches or God's wrath, but the smallest enemies hiding underfoot. Rats, those familiar shadows darting through granaries and sewers, Fleas, tiny specks, hopping freely, too small for anyone to notice. And from them, death erupted, sweeping away villages, towns, and then the whole world. You shudder, remembering the night when your whole village roared as they burned an innocent old woman alive, remembering the desperate look in her eyes as she was branded the witch who brought the plague. Now the cruel truth stands bare. They killed the wrong one, spilled blood to punish a shadow that never existed, while the real enemy still crept in every crack of stone, in every sack of grain. A bitter reversal, so much suspicion, so much hatred, all just a cover for helplessness before something tiny yet merciless. You clutch your head, aching. If the enemy had a face, at least you could hate it, fight it. But now, the culprits are the smallest of creatures, unseen shadows. They hear no prayers, fear no torches. They only scurry, bite, pass along disease, and leave bodies in their wake. The world feels overturned, every belief, every punishment, every excuse stripped of meaning. In that silence, a chilling truth settles in. People did not die from curses or sorcery. They died from enemies too small for the eye to see. And that truth, cold as it is, sharpens the fear because such enemies are everywhere, leaving no place untouched. Time drifts by, you cannot tell how long. Each day weighs like stone. Each night stretches like a lifetime. But then, one morning, you notice something strange. The funeral bells no longer ring in frantic waves. Once, the church bell tolled without pause, each strike marking another life gone. Now the sound comes sparse, uneven, as if even death itself has grown weary after such a long rampage. You listen, and for the first time, the silence between the tolls feels less like terror, more like a breath of relief. On the road, the bodies grow fewer. No more creaking wooden carts hauling piles of shrouded figures past the alleys. The houses remain shut, but the doors no longer always open to let the stench spill out. You glimpse a few windows glowing faintly, a few shadows peering out, eyes still startled, but daring at last to be seen. The sky that day seems brighter, too. Thin sunlight filters through the gray mist, touching the dusty rooftops with a pale, weary gold. And even that is enough to stir your heart. After so many days drowned in shadow and rot, A single ray of light is proof that the world has not been entirely lost. You take the old path, the worn trail that leads back to the village where you had witnessed every horror. The wooden gate that once bore the execution decree now leans crooked, the red letters smeared and faded by rain and wind. No guards remain. You step through, your heart heavy but pulsing with a new rhythm. The village is here, yet it is no longer the place you once knew. Roofs have collapsed halfway. Gardens are choked with weeds, lanes swallowed by grass that creeps up the doorsteps. No roosters crow, no children laugh. Only a few figures move quietly, gaunt and weary, like shadows that refused to fade. Among them, you recognize a few familiar faces, their eyes hollow, but they look at you not with suspicion as before, but with a gaze heavy yet warm. You are alive, too. In this moment, life needs no tears, no greetings. Just a nod is enough to set your heart trembling. You sit on a doorstep, your palm brushing cracked, dry earth. And then you hear a whisper. Next season, we must plant again. The words drift softly like a breeze, yet you know they matter more than any prayer ever could. Amid the ashes of plague, hope begins to glimmer. Withered hands still know how to grip a hoe, still know how to scatter seeds across soil that has borne too much grief. You lift your gaze to the sky, where the gray clouds are parting, revealing a faint wash of blue. For the first time in endless nights and days, you believe life endures, and that people, though scarred by nightmare, will find a way to rise again, to sow the field.